Tuesday Drive.
Now, have you got teenagers at home? What was it like during the lockdown? Did you struggle with them, or did they struggle with you? Perhaps did you find they got a little stroppy at times? Eating the pool lights, or were they digging up your backyard? I'm talking about your teenage dog. I mean, what did you think I was talking about? Not the two-legged variety, surely. Joining me now on this show is Barbara Hodel, a qualified dog trainer who has just released a new book called How to Love and Survive Your Teenage Dog. Hello and welcome back to the program, Barbara.
Thanks for having me.
Now, what is a teenage dog? I mean, we know what a teenager is in human years, but what about when it comes to a dog?
Well, it's actually fairly similar. They are a little bit younger in human years, but they scream for seemingly no reason, are overly emotional, and want to do whatever they want to do. So for dogs, it's pretty much very similar to humans. But they reach that stage maybe around 8 to 12 months, depending on the breed and the size of the dogs. Smaller dogs become teenager earlier than bigger dogs, but they also mature a little bit earlier. And larger dogs often take longer, especially male dogs, to mature and reach the stability of adulthood.
So, I mean, for humans, of course, we know when a teenager is, let's say 13, 14, 15 years, but for a dog, it's a lot less by the sounds of it.
Yeah, they reach that when they're about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months.
So
quite interesting, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm just trying to get I know. Sadly, dogs, of course, live much shorter lives than humans. So maybe is that why it's so accelerated?
Yes, and I mean they become teenagers when they're fairly early, well, compared to us, and they reach maturity maybe around 2.5, and then we consider them adults until about 7 or 8, and that's after that they reach the senior years. Because as we all know, dogs live to about 12 to 14 years on average. So that's how it goes with them.
Now, I mean, for those lucky of us that have been able to have a puppy dog, and we try and do the right thing, of course, we take him to puppy training, because that's when we're all led to believe that's the best time to train your dog. But you're suggesting that perhaps during their teenage years as well is a good time to train dogs. Why is that?
Well, I personally think a puppy school is a great start, and every dog should go to a puppy preschool. But I do think we are a bit mistaken or don't quite understand and are often surprised when the dog turns a teenager and then becomes fairly difficult to deal with, because the typical teenage dogs, they pull on the leash like there was no tomorrow. They jump on the guests, they dig up the yard, as you just said, and they do all these things. And we thought, well, we've done puppy school, we should be fine. But I think it's a bit like children. No one would think kindergarten alone will be enough education. So I would really recommend, after doing a puppy preschool, then go on and do a class for young dogs or teenage dogs.
So when you're teaching a teenage dog, how long would you suggest that you've undertake training for? I mean, I went to a puppy school. When I say a puppy school, my dog was quite old, but I still took him anyway. And it was just a 12-week program. But what about for a teenage dog?
I think if you do a class, maybe a 5 or 6 week course, and then keep doing a lot of training at home, and then maybe join something a little bit of fun, like an agility class or a rally obedience class, which is ongoing. Or there's a whole heap of different sports you can join with your dog these days. So I would start with a teenage class for about 5, 6 weeks, and then go on to something a bit more permanent that gives you and your dog something to do, so they don't bark at everything that moves or dig up the yard. And keep going, because it's also good for their socialization, so they meet new people and new dogs, and just generally stay well-adjusted and socialized.
And I guess it's really interesting what you just touched on there before too, the fact that once you finish your dog training for the evening or the afternoon, you go home, you don't just stop, that you actually have to repeat it with your dog.
Oh, yeah. And I people are always, especially my clients, they're always astonished if I say, look, to be a happy dog, a teenage dog needs 2 to 3 hours a day of quality time. And this is not counting the time they spend in front of the TV with you on the couch. This is doing stuff. It doesn't mean just walking the dog, but it means take them to a park, train with them, walk, maybe run or do a sport. I think one of the main problems we see these days is dogs that are bored because they might go for a 20-minute walk, but then there's still 23 hours and 40 minutes in the day.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do with themselves.
So I guess there could be like a little bit of anxiety too with dogs, especially like you said, if you're going to leave during the day, I guess a well-trained dog is better for your neighbours as well.
Yeah, and I think we have learned a lot in recent years, well, it's not that recent, but over the years that, for example, a football is a real waste of your money and the food. We should use most of their food for what we call enrichment, meaning feeding out the food dispensing toys, like the Kongs, or a cheap one is rolled up paper rolls. They actually can destroy them, or can be pizza boxes where you put a few treats in or part of their dinner, and let them work for it. And I think a happy dog is a dog that has used his brain, or her brain, and has had some physical exercise as well. And I think what a lot of people try to do is they run their dogs, especially the working breeds, into the ground every single day, but their dog still can't be calm because we haven't used their brains.
Well, that's really interesting.
And we try to aim for a good balance between mental and physical stimulation with young dogs, or dogs of all ages, pretty much.
So what's the main difference between having a puppy, going to puppy school, and then, I mean, what do you call this training with a teenager? Do you call it teenager training? Like what is there a special name for it?
Yes, I call it we call it here teenage dog training. And the difference to what we do in we do puppy schools as well. In puppy schools, I think we deal mainly with a little bit of obedience, but we mainly deal with things to teach the owners how to deal with house training, how to socialize properly, how to teach them to sleep quietly and be home alone. And then with the teenage dogs, we teach them to walk on a leash, to come back when called. We teach them to be calm when visitors come to the house. We teach them how to go to the coffee shop and how to behave in the presence of other dogs. I think basically it's just an ongoing thing from a puppy preschool then to a bit more of a mature training environment. Now,
do you have a dog yourself, or dogs?
Yes, I have 2 dogs. One just coming out the other end from teenagehood. he was the inspiration for the book.
Oh, right.
And he'll be 3 in a couple of weeks, and I have an older dog. She's 9. Obviously, she's perfect.
Of course, yeah.
And almost. And the big dogs, they're German Shorthair Pointers. So, and I've had dogs for pretty much my whole life. So
you said, sorry, a German head pointer. Is that a large dog?
German Shorthair Pointers. Yeah, that's large hunting dogs.
Now, what was it that I know you said it was because of your teenage dog, but what was it about it that inspired you to write this new book, How to Love and Survive Your Teenage Dog?
I see so many dogs that end up in pounds or lonely in the backyard because they have become teenager and more difficult to handle. And I think most owners are really taken by surprise that their dog turns to be a bit stroppy or doesn't listen anymore or has his own agenda. But I think this has to do with brain development. As with humans, the different parts of the brain develop at different rates at the teenage stage. And they can't really make good decisions because the brain's not connected properly. And if we know that there is a physiological reason for their challenging behaviors and that it is actually just a phase, we're more and better able to deal with them and don't just give up or even worse, bring them to the pound or relinquish them. And I think people need to understand that this is a normal part of growing up for dogs and humans. And that inspired me to get the science out there that we know that dogs go through teenagehood as well, not just humans, and how to deal with it.
I was actually just thinking, Barbara, about the fact that, if someone has got a teenage dog and they're a little bit unruly, the fact, that some people sadly are taking him to the vet. I mean, you can't do that with a human teenager. You can't take them back to where they came from, can you? So,
no.
Well, I guess you could try, but I don't think you'd get very far.
No one wants them.
Exactly. So it does make sense to persevere and put the time in with your teenage dog. It really does.
It really does, and I promise most of them, well, almost all, come out the other end a bright future ahead if you have the right information and are prepared for what's going to come. Because a lot of people think puppyhood is the difficult part. That's the easy part.
Well, hey, I've got one one last question for you, Barbara. Now, hypothetically, let's say you've got a friend called Sharon. Are you one of those people that if you're at the park and you're walking with your friend Sharon, you see someone down the road with their unruly teenage dog, do you turn to Sharon and go, shake your head and go, oh my goodness, will you look at that person? They cannot control their teenager. Are you one of those people?
No.
You're not.
I really have long given up on this. I think people need to do their own things, and my dogs are sometimes unruly, and I think we all need to cut each other a little bit of slack and not be too judgmental. I think the more we go with the flow and the more we try to help each other, I think the better it is for all of us.
Well, it sounds to me you are the person that I'd love to sit down with and have a cup of coffee and your imaginary friend Sharon.
Thanks very much.
But look, congratulations on the book. It's out now, I believe.
Yeah, it's out now, and if you can go to our website, I think you have that one. It can be bought on the website at the moment, so yeah.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for chatting with us this afternoon, and give your dogs a big pat for me.
Yeah, thanks very much for talking to me. Thanks very much,
Absolute pleasure.
Bye.
That was Barbara Hodel, qualified dog trainer, who's just released a new book, How to Love and Survive Your Teenage Dog, which is out now. I wonder, have you got a teenage dog at home? Have you been somebody that's taken them out training? Perhaps you've got some tips and tricks that you would like to share with us today on Tuesday Drive. It is bang on 5:45. Lovely to have your company. It's been a while since we had a little bit of Pink, and I thought this next song was highly appropriate considering that we've just been talking about training your teenage dog. It's Walk Me Home, and I imagine that's what many people do with their dogs on a beautiful winter's afternoon.
This is Tuesday Drive.